We're always checking out our options. The Americans get more excited about things than Canadians. In Canada, if somebody gets too excited about something or too inspired, we always go to the other side of the room to provide balance. That's what we do. This is one of our distinguishing features that we contribute to the world. And we know it's true because everybody's laughing, right? Even the Americans know that. But anyway, don't be afraid to get excited or inspired. It actually gets a little contagious, and people do get moved by it. So try to cut loose and have that happen. Maybe we could see that what we're in as a present crisis is going to move us to a deeper understanding of what it is to be a humanity and to be able to make the changes we have to see. Fundamentally, in 1993, UNESCO said that it's fundamentally a change of values and beliefs that are required. So if we continue to avoid the spiritual nature of the problem, we will continue to have a problem. We may be able to put some band-aids on it, make it a little less concerning, but one idea about religion I just want to mention before I finish with these other things and have you do a bit of work together, was to say that Abdu'l-Baha, when he was asked once about this world versus the spiritual world, like this idea that when you're religious, you don't care about this world because you're going to the next one anyway. So, you can care a little, but after all, you're leaving. So you're more interested in spiritual air miles than the physical ones because, that's where it's going to count. So, but he said this thing, and this is more like a pilgrim's note, but he said, in relationship to this world, we must live as though we are going to live here forever. In relationship to the next world, we must live as though our next breath is our last. So you should be spiritually prepared to go, but practically speaking, you should live in such a way as this life is long-lasting, because whether it's about yourself or your grandchildren and children, it is essential that we have this attitude of commitment. Belief in the essential nobility of human beings. The human beings are noble, and what does nobility mean? Nobility means you have the right to choose. Without the right to choose, and when that is not respected, it fundamentally violates the human dignity of people. And all the tragedies of the world have taken place by people at some point believing that others do not have the right to choose. And in fact, they're prepared to impose their agenda on them, even to the point that they will kill them. And so when we look at this, we have to say this preservation of this nobility, the essential nobility is we have inherent worth and we have the right to choose. The development of capabilities, we move away from kind of sort of preaching and talking to each other, but we move instead to the idea that each of us is working on capabilities. In the Baha'i community, we have 3 activities. We're not interested in ritual and dogma. We hold devotional meetings with all the peoples of the world for the purpose of humanity, for praying for humanity, and all the peoples of the world are invited to come to those gatherings whenever we hold them, and the purpose is to work together for the changing of the planet. The second activity that we're engaged in is the study of spiritual principle in small groups and the application of that. Because we don't know how to do it, we're working together to figure out what are the spiritual principles that we must know, and how do we apply them so we actually do start to change in our personal lives, in our own activities, and in the way in which we contribute to the common good. And the third activity is we are prepared and eager to work with every person on the planet who wants to work for the moral and spiritual development of youth and children, because they are our future, and they have to understand that their nature is not simply material, it's spiritual and moral. Commitment to a world-embracing vision. This is the one we said in the very beginning, and it's fundamental to the changes that we need to see. I think it's clear to all of us that inherent in human nature is we are not victims. We are not victims. We may have been victimized, but we're not victims. We are transcendent beings. We are capable of transcending the most horrific of tragedies and making complete lives of that. I work with abused children and youth that have been so violated that you can't imagine. And if you knew some of it, as I'm sure some of you do, it's just unbelievable that these things could happen to children and youth. But to believe for a second that being does not have the capacity to transcend that injustice and tragedy would mean that we should all just go home. The fact of the matter is they can. Not only can they transcend it, but if you talk to them and you consult with them, they are capable of developing their own treatment plan to which they can become healthy, contributing members to society. But part of that is you conveying the vision that you believe in their capacity. And I think this is the challenge for us, that we believe in the capacity of human beings to transcend this difficulty. We believe that we will have the capacities and capabilities to do it, and we will develop them by humbly working together in order to do that. The list of moral capabilities that you have on the back of your sheet there, I would like you now in your little groups that you're there with, and in fact, maybe the other people that are in the back could form little groups, but the idea we'd have here would be for you to look at these moral capabilities and think to yourself, knowing that each one of them is made up of, and you can write this down so you know, each one of them is made up of a constellation of virtues, a constellation of concepts, a constellation of attitudes, and a constellation of skills. So they're not simple. To oversimplify the moral framework that humanity needs to change the world is to deal with it superficially, and therefore disappoint people that are looking at it and minimize what it is that we have to develop. So when you look at each of these moral capabilities, you may want to discuss, some of those 4 things that I've just listed. But try as a group to decide what would be, of those 19 moral capabilities that are there, what would be the ones that you think would best help you when you leave here to be able to advance this cause that we're talking about here. A deeper understanding of what it is to have sustainable development. I love the thing that you said about living light. I think that's a wonderful... When I was at the World Summit, they said there were something like over 1,100 definitions of what sustainable development was. And that, therefore, created a bit of a problem for humanity. But I think this living light concept is great. But, of course, there's also a definition that talks about living in such a way that we don't compromise the future of our children and so on. I don't want to minimize that either, but I'm saying, what are these moral capabilities? There's one about being able to articulate a vision through a certain process. Think about how you would raise the level of conversation and how you would increase that capacity, and which of those capabilities you think are fundamental to that process. Thank you very much.